welcome to Jet Radio. This is Ted Shire, and Jet Radio is dedicated to community service as a means of sustainability. And here at Jet Radio, we define sustainability as everyone doing their part to better the community. Because the more people we have involved in the community, the more sustainable it will be. And today we have Dorrance Brezina with us as our guest, and Dorrance is kind of the kitchen sink of community service. He's done things in business, in community service. He's a prison chaplain, but I'm going to let him tell you, give his background in a little bit here after a few introductory remarks. So, in terms of sustainability's relevance, it's becoming increasingly relevant because most countries are becoming less sustainable. And in many countries, debt is a huge issue, and part of that is the government taking responsibility for people's lives when people-to-people assistance can function as an alternative to that. So that can be a relevant part of neighbors helping neighbors and helping several different forms of sustainability. This is part of an initial book launch series, and this is the last, and it's kind of a summary unit where we'll wrap up and tie together different types of sustainability. And this week's focus is why everyone's contribution is needed, and for both their benefit and for the benefit of the community. And the call-in number is 515-244-0077. And so, Dorrance, can you tell us about yourself and your background, both in the community and in ministry? Just business. Let us know a little bit about all of that.
Thank you, Ted. The Polk County Jail Ministry, which is where I serve at, the corrections unit in Polk County. And when we talk about putting corrections back into the corrections department, part of it is a Bible study. I don't think you're going to debate anybody into becoming a Christian or changing the way or repenting at the Polk County Jail without more of a story rather than a compliance or an obedience. We're called as Christians to be obedient, but as Christians, we're not saints, and we slip and fail. And so there's a wide variety of diversity at Polk County Jail, and that's what I like about working with the men down there. They're never there for more than 2 years, so a lot of times it'll be 2 or 3 months, and you'll get to know them. You'll see them go into sometimes a longer term sentence where they'll go to another state institution, maybe Rockwell City, Fort Dodge. Then as they exit the programs, they come back through Polk County. A lot of them have the opportunity to go through a program like Bridges, a faith-based program extending out their arms, not only in the corrections and the guidance and the mentoring program, but a faith walk.
Okay. And is that progression, how did that progression come about? Was that structured by a particular organization or?
Without a shameless plug, and I'll give one for Casey's and Don Lamberti and his family that gets very involved, and they're really the main supporters. Larry James and some of their board, extremely good at bringing other people around the Lamberti family, which has really been able to bring into the Polk County Jail a new facility to Polk County, capable of housing thousands of inmates possibly. Right now they're at about 1,600, I believe. Not at full capacity. They have a wide variety of people that go through the addictions court system. And as the system worked at Polk County Jail Ministry, which has been in existence for a long, long time, I've been on the board about 10 years, and I've been active as a volunteer for about 10 years, showing up on Sundays my time, getting 12 guys together, and we find that the recidivism rate is a little less when they become obedient not only to a Bible study program, but to some extended programs offered by Polk County, which give them an aftercare, somebody come alongside them. When they go through Bridges, they have the secular, non-secular decision to make. They can go through the addictions program, and I'm not speaking for them because I'm not their spokesman, nor have I been ever through that program, but it's a very good program, I understand, and there's a lot of different levels where they can exit, or they get probationed out, or maybe they have a slip or a fall backwards, and they come back through the jail system again. And when I see them come back on violated probations and things of that nature, I see somebody who's very repentant compared to a lot of the guys who maybe had an issue with the law 2 years ago or a year ago, and they didn't pass the proper test or show up at the right time or failed to report in or did a certain thing again that caused them a violation of the probation. So they might end up back in jail for 30 days or 60 days or a year. And as they continue to see their faults and their errors, they say, golly, maybe I need something more than my own will, even though we're all powerless over sometimes the effects of alcohol and substance abuse. We also go back to our old playgrounds. So the Bible study in the Bridges program, we plant the seeds. What comes out of my mouth, what comes out of my Bible studies is purely Spirit-driven. I mean, there's God's words or God's actions. Sometimes I drag my feet getting there, but I'm really grateful when I leave to know that we're making a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. So one of the reasons I was excited to have you here is because you cross over so many different areas. So tell us a bit about your business experience.
My real estate business has been active here in Des Moines, Iowa, my whole life. My adult life, I'm a native of Iowa, born and raised in eastern Iowa on a farm. When we farmed by a lot of livestock, we still detasseled corn. I didn't know kids went to Cancun on spring break. We did the things that thaw in the spring from a large feedlot, things of that nature. So we were always working. So I came from a work ethic. Went to AIB, was going to be an accountant. AIB strongly suggested I not be an accountant. And I know why. 35 years later, I understand that salespeople have a certain DNA, a certain direction. If you were talking to Mr. Stein or somebody, he would categorize this as a certain type of a person, a certain individual. A biologist will have a certain profile, an accountant will have a lawyer, et cetera, a doctor, whatever. So the DNA of somebody is really important. And I find that even people who are buying homes and fixing them up and they like to rent to other people, those are big-hearted people. For 80% of them, 20% of them just for the money. Yeah. So the real estate industry, the big-hearted people, I see a lot of really good apartment projects. I've sold apartments. I've sold farm ground. Farm ground is my favorite. And farming has a new turn. We have a new USDA with Vilsack in there and with Governor Branstad's leadership and some of the other people within Iowa. We have a really great USDA program for beginning farmers. And that plays right into what my long-term vision is, that I share that long-term vision, not just with myself or my family or the board, other people, but the correction system offers a great opportunity to put back into the community. And these guys really like the idea of giving back.
Yeah, are you going to tell us a little bit about some of those projects?
I think so. I hope so. I like it when you ask me questions and I don't get off on usual directions and lose track of the point that I want to make. But if the point that you want to make is about taking inmates and putting them into a long-term program that has long-term benefits for the state of Iowa, talk about feeding the poor, talk about feeding the restless, the people that are homeless, the people that don't have a place where they could have a garden, that food is shared throughout the state of Iowa in these victory gardens that we're seeing around the state of Iowa, around the church communities. We have seen substantial growth in the farmers market. I've heard numbers of 25 to 30,000 in downtown Des Moines. And maybe downtown market has gotten too big for Court Avenue. With the new Hy-Vee coming, maybe they want a part of that, or maybe they can be a part of it, or maybe it's time for a farmers market to move over to East Village, where it could even spread out more.
Yeah. Just briefly, I think we may come back to some of this, but isn't there a comprehensive program that would help veterans who want to get involved in agriculture?
Absolutely. The Wounded Warrior Project, along with Farms for Veterans, I think you and I have both spent some time over at Drake University under Neil Harrell and some of the other people that are teaching over there, and the ag law has changed so dramatically now that a young beginning farmer or a veteran farmer can have a 7-year plan to increase a small farm to a medium-sized farm where they grow nothing but vegetables. And Iowa's never had that before. The Veterans Farm Coalition, big supporters, Farm Bureau. The nice thing about Farm Bureau is they live what they talk about, they live what they ensure, they live what they teach. What they teach is beginning farmers how to be young entrepreneurs. They have in their own parking lot a farmer's market just for Farm Bureau during the harvest and gardening season. Farm Bureau is a real leader in what they want to do. They're a very strong supporter of the Veteran Coalition, Farms for Veterans, and Iowa has an opportunity to have a lot of new mini farms. If I were plugging my own business, I have probably 28 small farms for sale, from 10 acres to 20 acres. But to have a good vegetable farm, to qualify for the program, you just have to have 5 to 10 acres, and that's a lot of work.
Yeah. Let's see, and I know you're involved with the Microsoft project. Have you become, in the course of that project, have you become more familiar with their impact on the community?
Well, here's a great opportunity for me to be at the crossroads. Do I go left or do I go right? I am all for people with a tremendous amount of money. I am so red and Republican, it's not even funny, because I think the wealthier side, the entrepreneurial side, the strong business hands have a great opportunity to fund a lot of other projects that connect to their businesses, connect to our community, connect to our state of Iowa, and to the quality of soil that we live on.
Yeah. I'm asking you a spur of the moment question here, so if you don't know, that's fine. But any Microsoft community projects that you've become?
And this is where I turn real blue. This is where my liberal side. I get a little over to the right, I get a little over to the left, and then I like to end up being in the middle sometimes. But I think we need a new party. I think we need a responsibility. I think business needs to behave more like nonprofits sometimes. I think nonprofits need to behave a little bit more like businesses. And so we don't need a bunch of crazy people running around saying, oh my goodness, Microsoft is going to use up all of our water. Because we've got ethanol, we've got other large projects. And let's face it, Iowa slopes downhill. So our levels of water underground are somewhat unknown. The state of Iowa stopped deep water assessments some time ago. Might be a good idea to put those back in place. But a good Republican conservative would say, how would you be wasting money? That hasn't changed in 100 years. I don't know that. I don't know those answers. So I think what I would like to be a leader of is building up of our reservoirs, building up of our wetland areas. Farmers are very, very progressive. They're taking out a lot of the drainage basins that they used to have, called ponds, that got grown up in woods. And of course, we have a different kind of a wildlife today. We don't need the grassy patches for quail and pheasant because they all moved to South Dakota. We have bigger game. We have turkey, we have deer, we have whitetail. We have abundance of whitetail, no question. And so farmers are taking away some of the forestation. We saw this in the rainforest, and it was a big issue. I was probably overlooking some of the good farming practices that we're seeing large farmers take place in. Less terracing, different types of tillage equipment, not doing the deep till like we used to. A lot of tiling. The investors that have owned farms have improved their farms dramatically because of the rapid increase in their income. They're replacing some farming methods that they weren't using maybe 10 years ago that improved the drainage of the water, so the water is getting to the rivers quicker, but it's also getting cleaner.
Yeah. No. This is interesting. It's good to talk about your experience. Like you said, you grew up on a farm, and so that connects with both your business experience and sustainability. Environmental sustainability. So recently we had a couple of USDA soil scientists come through and really give us some good information on soil sustainability. But again, your wide range of experiences is appropriate for this particular unit of kind of summary unit because of the interrelatedness of the different types of sustainability. And actually, that was intentional in the book, is to repeat some of those themes because of the interdependence of the different types. And so when different types of sustainability cross over, then there's going to be slight manifestations of a similar, slightly different manifestation of a similar theme. So
I need you need to talk real slow to me because I'm from the farm and your Iowa State University education, your biology, really great. So I'm going to probably say some things that probably aren't necessarily what scientists would believe. But I think as we look at some of the crossovers from big ag, everybody wants to talk about GMOs. I'm kind of pro-GMO. I think there's a lot of warnings and conditions maybe that we would want to look at down the road for GMOs, but I think GMOs are very practical. And I think there's a lot of misinformation. So I wish somebody would educate the public a little bit better on, what's a safe GMO and what's acceptable. But gardening is one of the first opportunities for poor people to eat well, because they can plant some very good hybrid seeds. They can plant some very good original, some very back to earth, Mother Earth type of seeds, where they're completely separated from some of that. And then, of course, you got the Vietnam era guys that have to go completely organic. And so I think that diversity that the Veterans Farm Program brings to the table, I think that diversity is going to show us some really great organic or close to organic farming methods that, as profit margins become more important, now with the lowering of gas prices, natural gas and hydrous ammonia clearly increases the production of anything to a point. Raises your pH levels, but we've got a lot of people putting lime from the waterworks. They pick that waterworks lime up, which is usually just kind of stockpiled. Now they're putting it back into the land. We're seeing some benefits from that. It's recycling is best. I think we're going to see food recycling. I don't think we're going to be throwing food out anymore.
Sure.
You and I both go to a big place where there's a lot of meals served, and as we walk by some of those containers, we see that some of those 10-year-old kids really pile on the extra eggs, but they only eat a fraction of it, and then it gets dumped away. We're going to see a change in our environment there. We're going to have people that are growing organic food. They're going to want that bio-waste.
Yeah.
That bio-waste will become an important role for people who want to grow completely organic food. That's a marketplace where the rich, the wealthy, the intelligent, the higher educated people will say, I'm not going to buy my groceries from the shiny cucumber section. I want to come to farmer's market, or I want to grow my own. I want the experience for my kids to know. I think that's important.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think these are things that everyone can make a contribution to. And that's the main point of this session, is that everyone needs to make a difference in order for the community to be sustainable. And practically speaking, we know that isn't always the case. But when we talk about tipping points, we need at least half of any population to have enough resources and skills to help the other half. And when you fall below that 50% point, you're going to start to head towards unsustainability. So we need to keep that resource pool up. And I'm curious to know, if you've thought much about tipping points, community from a community standpoint.
The how-tos, or who's doing it?
Just what factors could lead to community sustainability tipping points?
Let's look at the victory gardens that the churches have. I know of 2 churches in West Des Moines over on Ashworth that back up to each other. Not necessarily the same denomination, but Christian's Christian. And these 2 Christian churches back up, one on one street, one another, and they have a big backyard. The church on the right, they were successful in the garden 10 years ago. And that garden got a little bigger and a little bigger. And youth groups, as they went from being 12-year-old kids pulling weeds, laying around in the grass, having fun with maybe mom and dad, grew into young teenagers, and they started taking a really active role. They became a band of brothers and sisters in the garden that everybody found their niche. And then from there, they become young adults. They become college students. And they take those college learned traits, those learned behaviors that they learned in the garden of how you have to nurture something. And, hey, those are my weeds. I'll take care of my weeds. You pull your weeds, I'll pull mine. They learn some of the basics. Those are some of the things that they take with them for the rest of their life.
Okay. So you're saying the nurturing process is really important for long-term sustainability and avoiding those tipping points.
And for mental health. For mental health, the mental health factors, I can talk, and you're talking about passion now. Now we're talking about where people with brain injuries, with learned behaviors, with stroke victims, even dementia and Alzheimer's, which is my stepfather passed away from Alzheimer's all in all. And it was really hard to see that deterioration. But he ate really well. So when I say well, he ate very healthy food, and his nutrition and his physical health was extremely good. But his mind didn't last as long as his body did. Mm-hmm. And so I think as we see the GMOs and I see the younger kids saying, hey, my grandpa or my dad or somebody in their family's got maybe Alzheimer's, or a variety of the unknown chromosome things that happen. Is that from our food supply? And so those tipping points of good health, I think we'll lean back to, well, I'm going to till my own dirt. I'm going to get these seeds from that specific company, and I know those seeds are safe, or those seeds are originals. People like Ray Myler and other people who can talk all day long about seeds. And then I got the guys from Stein. I got the guys from Pioneer that can talk about the GMOs. And you're somewhat of a scientist. You understand that language much better than I do. We have to have population distribution of food. And Iowa's the perfect place for that. That's where my heart really is.
All right. Yeah. It's time for a break. But when we come back, we'll be talking about how volunteerism can help us to avoid some of those community tipping points that I think an increasing number of people are concerned about. And again, our guest is Dorrance Brezina. He is a realtor here in Des Moines and also a prison chaplain with Polk County.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs,
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money-back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
Hi, welcome back to Jet Radio. I'm Ted Shire, and with me today is Dorrance Brezina. He is a realtor, businessman here in Des Moines, and he's also a prison chaplain with Polk County. So what we wanted to return to is volunteerism and how that can make a difference in sustainability, because when everyone does their part to better the community, we have a more sustainable community. And the more people that we have volunteering, the more sustainable it'll be. So the problem is that there is not enough of strategic targeting of volunteerism. So right now we do have a significant number of volunteers, about 26% of the adult population in the U.S. is volunteering in some way, shape, or form, but it's not very strategic in terms of sustainability. And as we've discussed in the past, a sustainability hierarchy would prioritize personal sustainability issues because those human behavior is at the base of every type of sustainability issue. And so since Dorrance works with prisoners, I want to ask him some questions about how personal sustainability issues can be addressed in the prison system. So, Dorrance, can you give us some feedback on that, especially with some of the agricultural initiatives in that respect?
I think one of the greatest opportunities sometimes a person can have is the opportunity to go to jail, to really see and reflect on where you've been, not maybe where you're going, but where you've been. And in that, I've learned a lot of things through the Polk County jail system. Polk County has a warm spot in my heart for many, many reasons. And some of them are very personal. Some of them are tipping points in my own life where I was going in the wrong direction, a different direction that I really should be going. And yet I had some great people come alongside me. And I've had Polk County come alongside me and say, hey, this is what we expect from you. And then when you get in jail, and here's the 10 rules of jail, and I think this is really great. They got to make their bed every morning. You got to get up at a certain time. And they have an opportunity to get some recreation. They have an opportunity to get some classes. I think the system promotes GEDs. I think they promote literacy. They do a good job of segregation. They keep people in community. They get along. Sometimes you're forced to get along with somebody you might not ordinarily get along with. Maybe you got to sit with somebody and have a meal that you would ordinarily sit with. And that learned behavior then becomes of, wow, we're all a lot alike. We all have something in common.
Yeah. But you're involved in some agricultural initiatives that kind of take care of the left brain, right brain kind of connection.
I learned this from a brain injury recovery facility. The late Jerry Armstrong had a family member that was in a motorcycle accident, or they fell from a barn roof, I forget. But either one of those two could cause a brain injury. When you are in a car accident, sometimes you'll take a bad hit to the head, and they behave or act like stroke victims. Maybe they aren't able to walk as they knew how to walk prior to the accident or the fall. Maybe they've fallen off of a scaffold, and they have to be retaught, sometimes even their speech. Those speech learned behaviors began at a very young age, but then maybe at 30 or 40 or even 20 or younger, something's happened, and they have to learn all over again. They've found the most success through bringing these children, young men, young women, victims of an accident, into a greenhouse where they started planting seeds. And those seeds became small plants. And they began to teach those students, those patients, those clients, because it was a private facility, the rotating them, learning, watching the nurturing part, watching something grow, counting the days, remembering the days, increasing your memory, getting the left hand to do what the right hand maybe was doing when it should have been the other way around. And some of the medical people within that organization were very patient with people who would maybe have outbursts of anger. Or maybe it was a stroke victim. Maybe there was some things that were only correctable to a certain point. But their motor skills found that they affected the speech, and the speech affected their motor skills. And the soil has certain kinds of enzymes, certain kinds of biology to it that just make depression go away. And when you've been injured or you're a victim or both, depression sets in very quickly because it's defeating to think, I'm not ever going to walk again or walk like I walked before or be able to run.
How much better was the agricultural treatment as opposed to other types?
All the difference in the world.
Yeah. Do you know the numbers?
Oh, I don't. And Jerry's no longer here, but Karen Armstrong, who was one of the pioneers of this Victorian Gardens facility. And the greenhouses are still up today. And those greenhouses still produce today clients that produce plants that are for sale this spring for gardening. So it's an ongoing program that continues to have more research done.
Okay. And who does that research?
The facility now is similar to like what you hear about on with Life, and it's subcontracted. I'm not as well rehearsed, but Victorian Acres is still the name of the facility, and they're over in Pleasant Hill, and they have clients that live in single-family residential style living, where they're taught to cook and follow the rules and create an atmosphere where they spend time in a greenhouse even in the winter. And of course, in the spring, as things become more active, the Master Gardeners Society of Iowa comes, and they're great volunteers that come in and work with some of those people, provide learning and techniques and tricks of the trade of pruning and growing things from seed.
Sure. Hey, and I want to make sure we've got some quality control here in terms of accuracy. I'm going to have to give you some pushback on the enzyme thing. I don't think enzymes from the soil are going to, I mean that the activity with the soil may make those kind of neuronal connections. But
let me say you some stuff on depression and how dirt changes the state of depression for people who are suffering from depression. Later, I don't have no information at my fingertips, but and that's why I'm in sales, so I hear something over here and then I kind of remember it and I put it together. And I think one of the reasons that the Veterans Administration is so committed to putting veteran farmers and Vietnam veterans who have Agent Orange and some other issues because of their health, they're finding that their work in the fields, in the gardens, in working in the dirt has made miraculous changes in some of the issues that they're facing because of injuries, because of accidents that have happened to them out in the field, and because of their readjustment back into the community. We saw that with World War II. When the World War II Iowans came back, a lot of them went back to the farms. A lot of them went back to a single-family residential residence in Des Moines, Iowa, where they had a large garden in the back. Produce was very hard to come by after World War II. And they found that the number of people readjusting back into the workplace, back into the community, after coming back from such a vicious war as World War II, responded quicker because of the family life that they had.
No, that's interesting, and and it syncs with organizations like AgriAbility, which it's a little bit different type of agricultural rehabilitation, but they make specialized equipment to help farmers with disabilities to use to carry out the farming operations. And in terms of whether they engage in what you're describing, I don't know if they've ventured into that area yet or not, but suffice it to say that agriculture does have the potential to help a larger number of people with rehabilitation. But in terms of helping more people, really that is a sustainability issue. So one of the things that has happened over the course of the past few decades, we went from trickle-down economics where things were mentioned along the lines of, if the very wealthy are doing well, that will trickle down to the rest of society. And to some extent, that happens, but only if it occurs in a certain way. So if everyone was functioning like Bill Gates and forming foundations to help a lot of people, then that would probably work. But in general, that's not what's happened. And really, masses helping the masses probably has a bigger impact than a trickle-down model. But as we've mentioned, examples like the Gates Foundation, Arthur Blank Foundation, many other types of wealthy families have examples of that. Those are a pathway to help a lot of people from a wealthy individual. So, Dorrance, can you share your perspective on how wealth can be used best to help a larger number of people?
Well, let me tell you a story about Wildwood Camp in St. Charles, off of I-35, just south of Des Moines. Beautiful Winterset, rolling hills, probably 300-400 acres. Has a history to it, and like anything that has a history, there's the good side, and then there's a little dark, and there's the good, bad, and the ugly, and everything. And there's some tragedy that happened out at the Wildwood Camp, and yet instead of doom and gloom, a very wealthy individual from Iowa came alongside that camp, and they put their money into it. They invested into it, and with some really great leadership, they put up a horse riding arena, which brought a whole new segment of people, of donors and teachers and candidates to help support it. And then after the indoor riding arena came Al Lorenzen, and Al had a very big vision, and Al really ran with that. Now today, because of sustainability from a wealthy group of people, some very successful fundraising went about, and even the people from places like Pella Windows and other major contributors, corporate-wise, came up, and they came up with a strategy where a nonprofit industry was behaving more like a corporation, more like a profit center. And they started saying, well, this is such a beautiful facility, let's have retreats here. Let's have corporate-sponsored retreats with team building and leadership building, and then let them come at the times when we're also doing the free stuff, the stuff where they bring in 1,000 children throughout the summer, and they teach those children everything from gardening to community behavior to learning to swimming to fishing, things that maybe, because it's a 10-year program, they were only in their second or third year, and they needed to see that leadership out there on a large pole where they're walking on a wire and they're walking as a team. And a lot of times you find that these kids that get involved with this 10-year program out at the Wildwood Camp become leaders themselves, and then they start giving back, and then they start earning as they're giving back. And I think that's what made Wildwood Camp, and now we have a greenhouse. Now we're actually doing things during the winter. When we first planted our first garden out there, the Isaac Walt League built a building. They brought their money out. They brought their volunteers out. Those volunteers, some of them became foundation supporters, and some of those people became leaders as teachers. But the leadership that rose within the leadership, and that's the call of a leader, to bring their people, their followers, to a place where they've never been before. Or maybe they were there once and they need to go back there again. Now that corporations have taken that, they can go out there to a nonprofit facility, and they can rent the facility. They can rent the brand new dining hall. I think I'm going to not quote any numbers, but it's a substantial amount of improvements, maybe $1.5 million or more. Maybe you're more familiar with Al's budget, but it's a substantial, well-maintained facility with a lot of improvements and in a very godly behavior, in a Christian setting.
Yeah. Do you know if the ongoing budget is supported by just the one family, or is it a variety of sources?
That one family has been obviously the anchor, but that family has brought along other friends, colleagues, and business associates, and then other churches, not just one or two churches, but many churches. And then you send 1,000 kids back into the community with a changed learned behavior that they learned at camp that's really good, that's really showing community. Then now you're showing the community, look, this program works. And then those residents from those small communities throughout Iowa, they come to see in Des Moines, Iowa, in St. Charles, Iowa, in Madison County, Iowa, what's going on.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So, and actually that's the idea.
It is.
Is to spread that, because, the top 1% pay like 35% of the taxes, something like that. They have so much of the money that they can make an immediate and a significant impact.
When we talk about the money side, I'll give the elders all the credit in the world. They brought out their equipment. The elder family brought out their equipment, their manpower, their skills, their expense. They came in, they changed the topography. They made substantial improvements. They tore down buildings, they added things, and they really spent a tremendous amount of money on that lake. There's a beautiful lake out there. Without Jay Elder and his leadership out there, they would not have brought other excavators and landscapers and ground movers.
Yeah.
To move the grounds out there.
Yeah, no, that's good. Hey, so it's time for another break here. But when we come back, we want to talk about a few other examples of wealthy families starting foundations. And the more of that happens, again, the more sustainable our communities will be.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back if you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, welcome back to Jet Radio. This is Ted Shire, and our guest today is Dorrance Brezina. Dorrance is a realtor and businessman here in Des Moines, and he's also a prison chaplain. So we're talking about the wrap-up chapter, Everyone Needs to Serve, and how there's crossover between different types of sustainability, and how that repetition is necessary, and also how the more people get involved in the community, the more sustainable it will be. So we were talking about how the wealthy can make more of a difference, because really, it's been widely publicized since the 2008 crisis in terms of how much money the wealthy do have, and not necessarily a bad thing. There are people that have worked very hard to get what they have, and are putting it to use in the community, like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. But that top 1% can make an immediate and huge impact through existing organizations or by starting organizations themselves. And an example of that is the Arthur M. Blank Family Foundation in Atlanta, and he is one of the co-founders of Home Depot, owns the Atlanta Falcons, and his family foundation has had a big impact in the schools there, and they have specialized in innovative programs for the schools, and one of those is at Woodward Academy in Atlanta, where they used gourmet-style cooking to help increase nutrition in the kids, and it's been a successful program. Again, they put their innovation to work there. And that's one of the advantages of some of the non-governmental programs, is that they can be more innovative. So one of the ways that sustainability can spread is if more families start to catch on and realize that they can make a difference right now, because I don't think that awareness exists to a large enough extent. If more people were aware of the impact that they can have right now, and of the quality of the organizations that are out there that they could invest in, more people would probably be making a difference, as well as just ordinary citizens, because we have a country with abundant food, and right now we would have no problem feeding every person a nutritious meal. It's not a resource issue. It's more awareness and logistics and things of that nature. But if people set their mind to it, ordinary citizens can make an impact right now with either food, meal provision, starting a shelter. For instance, Lincoln Park Community Shelter in Chicago. That was a place where I volunteered about 10 years ago. And that's where I learned that helping others helps me, and helping others helps other people. So one of the characteristics that's relevant from that organization is that it was started by a group of ordinary residents from Lincoln Park. They noticed an increasing number of people that were homeless in their community, and they decided to do something about it. So 4 different churches came together. People of different faiths, people of no faith came together and shared a common purpose on things that they care about. And that was in 1985. It's still going today, stronger than ever. It has a 70% success rate in terms of its clients maintaining their housing or employment 2 years after they leave. And they have around 1,500 volunteers a year that help out. And so that's been done in every major city by different groups. And the more people are aware of the type of impact that they can have, such as that, the more likely it'll be that we have more of that. We can have dozens of examples of that happening all over the country, and that's the type of thing that we need to have in order for us to maintain long-term sustainability. So that's the kind of wealth distribution that talking about, kind of masses helping the masses instead of just a very few helping, but then they can help the masses by working through those organizations that help the masses. Do you have could you share your perspective on that?
Yeah, the best way to do that is to give where you know best. The Knapp family, clearly, I mean, the real estate moguls of Des Moines all take their hat off to Bill Knapp, who looked at Drake University in a time when Drake was a very touch-and-go location. And when Bill first invested in the diner and built that spectacular place there, a great place for breakfast, and there was a tragedy almost day one, and how people came around that. And from there it built up. Evil did not have its day there. May have had its hour, but the day was, the light came to at the end. Today, Drake University is a different place. It's not just the Olmsteads and the families that have come and gone from the Drake, the Helmicks, but the Knapps who continue to sustain other areas of real estate because that's their expertise. When Bill saw the fairgrounds and the promise that Hubble and people started 100 years ago, that's where Hubble Avenue came from, of course. They were founding fathers. And then you have the Anderson Erickson and the Erickson family, just stellar people across from the fairgrounds, investing in that neighborhood. They changed that neighborhood. The fairgrounds today, a state-owned property, continues to grow. It's Iowa's best promotional product location for conventions. And so you talk about promotions, the Vernon Company in Newton. When the Maytag family decided, Maytag, when I say the family, the community, saw Whirlpool go, they didn't give up. The people that were the mainstays, the big anchors of the Newton community came together, and they didn't give up. And they brought NASCAR. They brought nobody was expecting that. How do you turn a company around like that? Bob Van Diest up in Webster City, they lost 1,700 employees when that factory closed. That leaves a lot of people in despair. And the Van Diest family took some very courageous steps and build a new facility on a major intersection, which today is becoming 5 years later, becoming a landmark in that community. And Bob's to be commended. He's brought in other people to come alongside that Van Diest hospital effort. But when you got medicine and you've got technology like Microsoft, and you have all that, the infrastructure that comes along with that, that's the big money. Mm-hmm. The real thing is the volunteers. People like Bill Knapp, they roll up their sleeves when real help is needed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, real good. So you've seen kind of both sides of the coin. So you've probably seen people helping people with accountability, and examples where there wasn't accountability. Can you give us some perspective on the difference?
Well, we had I'm not going to say his name. He was kind of a famous guy down at City Council, and it was a great effort for the unemployed and for the reteaching, the retooling of skills. And somebody took advantage of a salary and no salary caps and a variety of things. Maybe took advantage of a flood or two that came along, and then those people so people point to those people and say, oh, well, look at this or that. There's a lot of big givers in this community who we know have a lot of wealth, but we may not hear about their giving. They may give anonymously, or they may have found their niche recently in a ministry program or something that they know how to run, maybe a church, maybe a new foundation that they're thinking about. I encourage them to move forward, step out. You don't have to do it like Bill Knapp. You don't have to do it like the Pomerantz family. You don't have to do it like some of the other big givers that gave quietly, had their own things that they like to support, but they sometimes give anonymously. And those are the big givers. The people at the Humane Society can speak for that.
Yeah. I think I was thinking more along the lines of there are some programs that actually will work without that much accountability, like Housing First, and compare that with other examples where that it doesn't work, where you don't have accountability.
To give people money based on how many children they have, or based on they're not having to be accountable, not having to go to work, and that's what I like about the probation system. The 5th Judicial District does a really good job of making sure that these guys go get jobs. And maybe they show up an employer and say, well, don't hire me because I'm on probation or parole or what. Those are the guys to hire, because you know very well that there's somebody watching over their shoulder for a certain period of time. They're going to show up clean and sober. And so the prison program, the release program, the early release program, the ankle bracelet program, there's a lot of good teeth in those organizations that if the right employer would come alongside that person and then make them accountable after probation and parole does their thing, I think we've got a real good society. Then we have a community that comes together, comes along people that you might not ordinarily trust or might not ordinarily hire, and give them a chance.
Yeah. And do you facilitate some of that?
I'm gonna be really, it's not a false humility, but I'm not gonna talk too much about what I do. I give till it hurts. And my wife even gives more than I do till it hurts. And we haven't always been successful with some of those people. And some of those people are still a work in progress. But I've seen some federal inmates go back to their hometowns after getting out of the federal prison, going out to the fort, going back out to the fort, that didn't do well outside of structure.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think we need a really good group housing project. We need to have some work farms.
Yeah.
I'm working quietly behind the scenes with some very strong leaders that have access to 400 or 500 acres with hundreds of beds possible, thousands even maybe. And the academy is a great place to go back to Woodward. The people that work and dedicate their lives to those youth out at the Woodward Academy, they're smart, but most of all, they're experienced. I think the banking industry knows a lot of times maybe somebody will walk into the bank and want to restart. Sometimes the restarts are the best ones because they've already failed. They've already learned, boy, don't go down that road or don't do it this way. But then once again, learned behavior is a tough mold to break. And I have my own struggles with learned behaviors. And so I see that. So I'm very compassionate. I think that's where compassion really oversteps even common sense or maybe what somebody would do without the experience. Mm-hmm. There are some people that walk through life without any conflicts in life. They just, they're just legacies in their own time, really, with their quality of life. Walt Shotwell, you name it, some very great journalists who would see so many different kinds of walks in life, and they could write about people and they could see the qualities in those people, and you never heard them speak a bad word about anybody. Those are the real quality people that make up the community also.
Yeah. For those that aren't aware, and again, I want to mention Dorrance here. He is a businessman and a realtor and prison chaplain here in Des Moines, and has a lot of crossover between different types of sustainability. But for those who aren't aware, Housing First is a program that helps that gets people into housing without any qualifications. And so it actually does help a small segment of the population. And it's valuable in that it reflects the value of compassion, but it really does work because when they get the people that are really worst off, chronically homeless, chronically addicted, into housing, it actually saves the cities that have tried it money. And although it doesn't work for the majority of people, it does work for that segment. And Seattle, for one, saved millions of dollars with a program like this. And the savings is in policing costs and hospitalization costs. But otherwise, people normally need something more like intensive care, lifelong comprehensive care to get better, because life's a journey, and we're all on some sort of recovery journey, and myself included.
Thank you for the introduction, Ted, because we do have really firsthand knowledge. The fairgrounds is an area warm to my heart. The people that run the fairgrounds are very concerned about some of the things in the community. And I have a house down there. I have a house on University that if you saw that house 3 years ago, 2 years ago, even a year ago, you just said it was the worst house in the block in the neighborhood. I haven't collected a bit of rent from my tenant partner in that real estate deal. He's got his own issues, but they're all healed, and he's healing. And that is the best house on the block today because he had a vested interest in seeing it succeed. and he's been through some tough scenarios, but he's very gainfully employed, works 2 jobs. And if you consider the job he has working on that house, a third, he's working 3 jobs.
Yeah.
And that program is really working, and it's right outside the window of one of our city managers, previous retired. I think he's retired. I don't know if he's on the city council of Des Moines anymore or not, but this man would look out that window, look down that street, and this is one of Des Moines' hot areas. This is an area where a lot of stuff could happen. Matter of fact, it's probably within a walking distance of one of Des Moines' latest murders, most recent. But this is the best house on the block because of people such as myself, such as my company, Developers Realty Group, that invested in this. And we put the money out. The bank, Fidelity Bank, they don't get their payments quite as regular as they would like them, but they too have a vested interest in this because that's who I bought it from as a bank repo. I paid probably more than it was worth in their condition, but they've been more tolerant maybe because of my special needs interest in this. But that house is now a really good investment for both the bank, myself, the community, the neighborhood.
Absolutely. No, thanks for doing that. I really like those stories. Can you give us some other examples of initiatives or programs that create a more civil society? Because there are programs that have that value of compassion.
You have to look at Freedom for Youth. You have to work at the houses that they have out there. We have to be careful not to brag about something too much or knock on our own door or ring our own bell too loud because, the final chapter is not wrote on some of these programs yet, and some of them have failed. Some of them have been tried and it didn't work out. I've got a couple of those examples myself, but there's apartment buildings, small ones, where leadership will put somebody in there that's really quality. And then from maybe an inmate release program, the Fort Des Moines program out at the OWI camp, and which is also a repeat offenders camp, and it's a federal release program. Some of those programs offer job training along with the housing. So as they're in this almost dormitory style like housing, those are the programs that work. Less guards, more inmate resident responsibility, accountability to each other. Mm-hmm. Let's have less structure and more freedom to make good choices.
Mm-hmm. What kinds of accountability have you seen work well in the prison system?
The hierarchy of need. Freedom is still the biggest need that we have. Once you've got the 3 meals and a cot covered, that'd be prison, jail, then you get into the release program and you think, wow, release is a lot better. And, I need somebody to make sure that I come home after work. So maybe they're given bus tokens and they're in a dormitory style living, like out at the fort, like out at the zoo. And maybe they can't work much more than about a quarter mile away from where they're housed because they wander. Once they get a mile away from the facilities, they don't come back. And so they work right next to the zoo, and they're around animals, and they're around nature, and they're around other families. And so they see the community working right in their own workplace. McMinimum's is probably one of the best examples out in Oregon that has multi-facet entrepreneurial business skills that grosses millions of dollars a year. Sally Malone, my friend out at Facebook, told me all about it. I've been studying it closely ever since. The people from Seattle that are coming here building Facebook and Microsoft, they come with fresh ideas, some great ideas, and they come with a lot of experience. They're operations engineers and they're smart people, and they bring also with them Northwest Pacific culture, which is completely different than the Midwestern Iowa culture. But they are making themselves at home here because we have big open arms just like they do.
All right. That's a good phrase to end on. So, Dorrance, thank you for joining us today. Again, our guest has been Dorrance Brezina. He is a realtor and businessman here in Des Moines and also a prison chaplain. And this has been Jet Radio, committed to community service as a means of sustainability. And we are dedicated to helping you to make a difference in the community with your existing skills and resources. Thank you for joining us today, and join us again.